Built in 2016, Flying Aces is the second of two Intamin wing hypercoasters built in the world. The other one is Skyrush at Hershey Park. Though Flying Aces may not be the crazy intense ejector machine that Skyrush is, I still think that it's a very unique experience, unlike any other coaster that I've been on. The first category is height. Flying Aces stands at a very impressive 206 feet tall. I think this is a perfect height for the coaster for several reasons. First of all, it allows for huge elements. It also allows for a really good speed, which I'll get to later. It also makes for an overall huge ride, and I love that. Flying Aces uses its height to pull off many things, like a huge stangle dive and the tallest loop in the world. Not the tallest inverting loop, but the tallest non-inverting loop. I give Flying Aces a very good 9.5 out of 10 for its impressive height of 206 feet. My next category is speed. Flying Aces travels at 74 miles per hour, which is very good for the first half of the ride, but then it loses a lot of that as you enter the second half. I wouldn't call the second half of the ride slow by any means, but it could use much better pacing. There's still airtime, and it still allows for a pretty whippy heartline roll. That's right, this coaster has a heartline roll, a very key difference from Skyrush. I do think that the second half kind of lacks some speed, which sets Flying Aces back on its score in this category. I'll still give it a 7 out of 10 for its speed, though. Believe it or not, theming is one of Flying Aces' biggest strengths. This is probably the most themed coaster I've been on. As you enter the queue, you're brought to almost a separate world. You see projections, rocks, lanterns, blueprints, and models, and realize that you are in the designing process of an old warplane, the ones that Ferrari used to make. You come to the realization that you're going to be the one testing the new vehicle of flight. The light is dim as you enter the station, and sadly get assigned to a row. This is it. The curtain opens up and you are blinded by the light of the outdoors. You then take off through the layout. Flying Aces has to be the most themed coaster at Ferrari World, and definitely the most themed coaster that I've been on. I give it a 10 out of 10 for its extremely immersive theme. Flying Aces is very good at packing in forces. It has floater airtime, ejector airtime, and also lots of intensity. The most intense part is definitely the drop. I grade out from the 5 Gs that it pulls at the bottom. The best airtime moments are the drop in the back row, going over the non-inverted loop in the back row, the 2 big floater camelbacks in the back row, and the speed hill after the stangle dive. Flying Aces is definitely a back row ride. The front row is good, but really only for its speed. The back row is much more intense and has better airtime. Speaking of intensity, it's a very intense ride. As I said, the drop pulls 5 Gs. The stangle dive is very tight and intense. Every pullout is intense, and every turn had me pinned to my seat. I give Flying Aces a 9 out of 10 for having not only really good airtime, but some really great moments of intensity. Our last category is the trains and restraints. As you may have expected, this is where Flying Aces falls back. If you've ridden Skyrush, you know these restraints. Flying Aces has the infamous thigh crush restraints. I don't hate them as much as I know a lot of other people do, but I'm not going to call them good because they are far from it. The first half of the ride is not bad at all, but as you enter the second half with lots of turns and transitions, the restraint starts to come down, and it keeps coming down, and it keeps coming down, and it starts to get very, very uncomfortable. I didn't like the restraints on Flying Aces, and I don't think that I'm upsetting anyone when I say that Flying Aces gets a 4 out of 10 on its restraints. I would give it a 3, but I had to give it an extra point for having an absolutely awesome-looking train. The whole design with the propeller on the front and the yellow body of the train goes really well with the white track and the overall theme of the ride. Flying Aces is a very good coaster, and I'm very lucky to have ridden it. After adding up and averaging out all 5 scores, the coaster gets an overall score of 7.9 out of 10. It's a great coaster that I think is perfect for Ferrari World. It's a really good thrill coaster, but it's still a major step down from Formula Rossa. Though the coaster has its flaws, such as the restraints and its poor pacing, it still has airtime, intensity, and a very impressive theme. If you ever have the chance, I completely recommend this coaster. Anyways, this is CT Coasters, signing off.